Drew and Fuse Show, the Drew and Fuse Show. They clean up nicely. It's the Drew and Fuse Show, the Drew and Fuse Show, the Drew and Fuse Show. Yeah, they clean up nicely. Yeah.
Hey, what's up? How you doing today?
Great, man. My internet is working. It's been down for the last, 15 hours. So that's frustrating, but we're back and we're here. So doing awesome.
It's that sweet Cali life. Everything's cooler out there, man. Even the internet.
The internet's too cool to show up to my house.
Yeah. It's fashionably late. That's all.
Yeah, exactly.
So we just want to say once again, thank you guys to everybody who's been listening, everybody who's been commenting. We really appreciate you. If you are listening on YouTube, please make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the videos. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please make sure to rate and review. If you're on Spotify, please give us a download, an auto download. We appreciate that. We got a very special guest for you guys today. We're just going to get right into it. Our guest today, his nightclub resume includes many award-winning venues such as Live Miami and Heist in DC, and he's played countless gigs all over the country. He shared the stage with names including Ja Rule, Nick Jonas, Sean Paul, and Adam Lambert. He's been on air with stations like LA's Power 106, Shady 4-5, and Sway in the Morning. He's been on the nationally syndicated Kid Craddock Morning Show. He's the official DJ for the Pittsburgh Steelers and the University of Pittsburgh Panthers men's basketball and football teams, where he's performed in front of crowds over 60,000 people. Please help us welcome Digital Dave.
Yeah.
What is up? I was waiting for my Chris Brown entrance music. Come on, Fuse. You're a wrestling guy, Fuse. Where's my entrance music?
I know I messed up.
We can get it in post editing.
Yeah, well, we can post edit that for sure. But honestly, Dave, we just want to say thanks for willing to come on the show and have fun with us in the 3 times topic and all that. We really appreciate you taking the time to do this with us today.
For those of you who are just tuning in for the first time, I ranted. We were having a good time the other night on the Simo episode, and there may or may not have been a couple drinks involved. And
like
by may,
10.
I mean definitely. And it just felt like we were hanging out. We were just joking around. Dave's one of my favorite DJs. He's an amazing programmer. I know he doesn't think this is the final go-to song. Me and him have kind of just a running back and forth between this. So we have him on here to tell the real story. And he has the floor to basically rail back at me for all he wants. So let's hear it, Dave.
Well, so the funny thing, the way I hadn't yet listened to the Simo episode, and Alex Neppa, a good friend of mine, and I know a friend of you guys as well, Alex hit me up and he's like, hey, did you hear Drew was like ranting about 3 times and you for like 15 minutes on the Simo episode? And I'm like, no, I didn't hear it. And I'm thinking, it's a figure of speech. He's exaggerating. And I literally listened to the show. And I think from when you started to when you ended was actually 16 minutes. So you went in. But so where this all started was we're a DJ collective.
Wait. I want you to go, and I will not interrupt you the rest of the time. I want to say that we recorded that right before you and Alex had both been just trolling me with videos on this song. So it was fresh in my mind. Otherwise, I don't think I would have thought much about it, except for that you had just kept sending me videos of this dumb song. So that's all I'll say. You have the floor.
So this all starts, we're out in DJ Collective in Arizona, and it's, I believe, like the first afternoon we're there. I feel like I just come back from playing basketball with a group of the DJs out there that played basketball the first morning. And Drew, I forget who you were talking to, but you were talking to someone, you were helping them go through and do some crate and library organization. And it was Rob. Okay. And you said that they had like, I don't know, it was 50 or 60 versions of 3 Times by Chris Brown. and you said, you got to take these all out. And you're like, like he had a version in there that's a transition from Yeah by Usher to Yeah 3 times. I'm like take that out of there. So my response to you was, wait a minute, that's my transition. So that's where
I did not know that in my defense.
That's where this all started. Well, I know you didn't, which is what made it even funnier. That's what made it funnier that you didn't know that. And I was like, so it kind of started as a joking back and forth because you unknowingly told someone, which I agree, you should not have 63 versions of that or any other song. I saw someone post the other day, they had 137 versions of All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, so that was where this jokingly started, was that, Drew had, and who knows, maybe it was the Simo. I didn't know until the Simo episode that he had also done a transition of Yeah to Yeah 3 times. So maybe it wasn't even my transition. Maybe it was Simo's that you were telling them to remove. But that was where this kind of joking back and forth started. And then I think a little bit, I definitely have an inclination to, when someone gets fired up about something, like I'll keep poking the bear. So I think the more fired up you were getting about it, the more I was like, okay, I'm gonna poke Drew a little more. He's getting really worked up about this. So
which I totally find funny as shit. I'm all for it, but again, once we get going, I have no problem talking shit back. So I'm all for it. I found it funny, but yeah, that's how it all started for sure.
So Yeah 3 times is a song I play at sporting events, play it at some weddings. Just also to clarify, what I also feel like this turned into, and I didn't want it to turn into, is, I'm not trying to be the spokesperson for Yeah 3 times or, this is not a hill. There are songs I will die on a hill for, but Yeah 3 times is not, I think it is a worthwhile song to play, but it's not a song that I'm going to die on a hill for. The one thing we did talk about, and I think you started using a different edit, was the original edit you sent me, you were playing, was just the chorus. It went straight into the hook, but it didn't have the you like to drink, so do we part, like if you want to call it the bridge or the pre-chorus. And so one thing we did talk about was, I felt like that part was necessary. Like, I feel like it's a song where the hook needs that lead in, as part of the energy for the hook. So, and I know since then you sent me a different edit that you were playing, which has that part as well as the hook. But just to end, I don't want to, dwell on this too long, but because now I'm starting to develop a complex, because I don't want to be known as the Yeah 3 times guy. I'm going to go through my top Chris Brown songs in my Serato. I know you guys like top songs anyways. We'll see where Yeah 3 times is on the list. So my number one,
we'll make this a music episode for sure. So I love it.
My number one Chris Brown song in my Serato, my top 5 here is Yo, Excuse Me Miss, and is actually the Fusamania edit.
Hey.
That is my number one.
I love
most
that
played
song.
Chris Brown song.
How do you play it in your set? Do you play it towards the end of the night? That's usually how I always play it, as like one of the last 5 or 6 songs when I'm trying to wind it down a little bit.
Yeah, it's either an end of the night song, or I play at a few venues. Like I play sometimes at a steakhouse. I play at a cigar bar once in a while. So if it's a venue like that, it could be like an any time in the night if it's a chiller venue. But if it's a dance floor venue, yeah, it's definitely like a winding down type song.
Cool.
So my number 2 Chris Brown song is All Eyes on You with Meek Mill. So if you want to consider it a Chris Brown song, but he does sing the hook. Number 3 is Party. Number 4 is My Last with Big Sean. Number 5 is Run It. Number 6 is Questions. Number 7 is Wobble Up. Number 8 is Heat. Number 9 is Birthday Cake with Rihanna. Number 10 is Loyal. And finally at number 11 is Yeah 3 times. So it is my 11th most played Chris Brown song. So I'm, I think it's a worthwhile song in certain instances, but I don't want, now I'm getting the complex that people are going to think that I play Yeah 3 times every set. And I also don't want people to think that either.
No, we're clearing the air up. This is all started for me and Dave just fucking with each other back and forth about it. And had you not messaged me like right before we started recording that episode, I wouldn't have even thought about it. But you just kept sending me these things, so it became funny.
Well, now let me ask you this:
don't
Did
love
you
that.
guys get? Did anyone? I know some people said they were going to. Did anyone send you videos?
We did get a few, and I will say most of the videos we got, besides one, most of the videos we've got, I will say the party itself just was kind of like meh. So, you know, it's like a 10-person, 15, 20 people on the dance floor in general, and they're like, you know, when there's parties like that, like everybody's trying to just do their part and dance to make the party fun. Or like half the crowd was into it and half the crowd really wasn't in any videos we saw. There wasn't the only one worth maybe that was good was from another DJ, Even Steve. And he kind of had the crowd going pretty well with it. But he even admitted it was like the first song he played from like his opening set transition into the party to kind of get him. Yeah. But we do kind of want to admit defeat with you. We have this video we're going to show. It's a great video. Drew's decided to admit defeat because of this video that was sent in. So here we go. We're going to play it. Nobody's going to be able to hear the comments. So hold comments until after. Here we go. All right. That was the most lit video we got.
Shout out DJ Demand for sending that one in.
he actually sent me that video as well. So he gave me a heads up that was coming. I believe he sent it to me with the caption, "I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong here."
So I will also say that I did play it at my wedding. It was working. Let's say I played the transition, the bridge, right?
Yeah.
And that bridge part actually fell flat the way I mixed it in. And then when the yeah part came in, they did go, you know, they had their hands in the air, and then I mixed out. I think some of this also is me and you have a complete different style. You like to introduce parts, you know, because you scratch or you do routines, right? So I think you bring it in a different way than the set that I would play it in would be just, you know, real fast do is why I had that hook first and didn't have the bridge part. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm following. So my theory with that, and I know I talked about this some in my DJ Collective in 2019 at my presentation on programming. My theory with that is like certain parts of songs that people really like, it's helpful, in my opinion, if they know they're coming, if the part doesn't just surprise them. So for instance, like Trap Queen by Fetty Wap, you know, probably 10 years ago, Dave, you know, I know that song wasn't around then, but 10 years ago, Dave would have probably thought, okay, like let's mix, you know, an intro version that starts with a beat and just goes into like the hey, what's up, hello part. But everybody loves to sing the hey, what's up, hello part. And if you do just an 8-bar intro, and right after that 8 bars is, hey, what's up, hello, nobody knows it's coming, so they can't sing along to it. So for instance, with something like Trap Queen, I made an edit where it literally goes into the beginning synths where there's no beat at all, so that people can sing the hey, what's up, hello, because they know it's coming. And, you know, even the 1738 line, people like to sing along to that too. So sometimes I feel like you almost need the you know, precursor 8 or 4 bars before a big part of a song so that people can enjoy it because they know it's coming.
Very
totally
true.
agree. I totally agree. And even on that Facebook thread that was going crazy, I was saying, hey, please send me the edit that works. I must be playing it wrong. And I know this because, say, Simo recently just did like a hook only edit of Clarity, and that song never really worked for me. And now that hook only is one of my biggest songs. So I know the edit is everything. And that's why I kept saying I have to be playing this wrong, because the way I was sandwiching it in was as a big, you know, 130 BPM up tempo banger, right? I was sandwiching in between those other songs, and it just kept falling flat. So I took it out, and it kind of solved my issue of just not working in that set.
Right.
So,
and not only the edit, I mean, the edit 100% matters, but the other thing to delve into, the music programming theory here is how you mix into it completely matters too. For instance, I know, and I still throw it in to this day sometimes, but I know in the heyday of the open format, like 2005 to 2010 era in nightclubs, I started playing Rage Against the Machine, Killing in the Name of. And the first time or two I played it, I just had to figure out the right way to make it work. And it wasn't working really well for me. And then I came up with the concept of, and I use various different songs, but I would do like a hip hop acapella out, and I'd like scratch and then drop it in at full volume under like a hip hop, like a harder hip hop song acapella out. Just that way of bringing it in started really working. Like it was working really well every time I played it. And then I started playing it, and some other DJs in the city, some less experienced DJs, tried to start playing it, and they'd start the song from the beginning, or they'd be like trying to beat mix it in and bring it in slowly. And it was just like you needed to hear it at full volume, like right away, to have that impact and that moment with the crowd. So there are absolutely songs that you could play even for the same crowd, and they could work or totally fall flat depending on the way you bring them in. Not even partially, part of it's the edit, but part of it's also how you mix into it too.
100%. Again, even on that same thread, I kept saying, I've tried re-editing this song 100 times and it just still doesn't work for me. So again, I don't want to make this whole episode about this. I love for you to come on, and I know that is not your go-to song. So anything else you want to say about it before we move along?
I am done with it. I am done with it, but I do like to, if sometime in the future we can make this happen. I know Drew floated the idea of doing a segment of me and you argue about music for 5 minutes. So I'm definitely open to doing that if
I 100% want to do that, and we both come to the table, and it'll be pre-planned, right? So we pick a song and come to the table with a video of each one of us playing that song and just battle it out. So, and Fuse will be the referee.
Yeah. Totally.
So I love
that. It ties in perfectly because you have which I wanted to bring up at some point in the episode. I love the logo that was, the interpolation of the Fight Club logo. That was the first thing that caught my eye when you first came out with the show. I was like, their logo is the Fight Club logo. I'm like, this is cool.
Thanks. It works out well with the slogan now, which is "They clean up nicely." So, and the theme song and everything, because it's a bar of soap, and which, if you didn't know how that little slogan came, me and Drew was in town, and when we were went to go do some promo pics for this, we had our tuxedo T-shirts and jackets on, and I live in a condo building that's got 178 units, and when we got out on the main floor, this old lady was like, "Well, don't you boys just clean up nicely?" And we were like dying laughing because we were in tuxedo T-shirts and jackets. So
yes, I did. And I did actually, I listened to the Phrase episode where you talked about that and talked about the whole development of the theme song and such. And the Fight Club also ties in nicely too, because I felt like by the end of this ×3 Facebook thread, I felt like Drew was arguing with himself by the end. So, there's another tie-in from the movie.
We're going to skip ahead a little since you gave us some Chris Brown songs. We're going to do the top 5 a little in a few. We'll be back with those. But what I want to ask is you're the in-game DJ for the Steelers. And a lot of guys, when they think of DJing for such a big name, or the NFL, or even the NBA, they think it's very glamorous. And while I'm sure it is, I would like you to kind of tell us the reality of it and the work that goes behind it and everything with that.
Okay, sure. So, the first, I guess, level of it going into music for games is I have a boss that I report to there who is the in-game producer. And so what he does is he basically is in charge of all of the presentation, everything that happens during a game, both audio as well as, before the game, in between commercial breaks, everything that's up on the video screens, everything that's on the LED rails, pretty much everything in the stadium he plans out in advance of the game. So one thing with the Steelers, now this is not the case with the University of Pittsburgh. This is not even the case with every professional team. But with the Steelers, basically anything I want to play at all during a game, I have to submit to him before game day, and he has to approve these tracks to be played in game. So the Steelers are very, concerned with, obviously, they're one of the biggest brands in professional sports with their image. And so they, everything's got to be approved. They want to make sure that there's nothing that they don't find distasteful. And almost everything I ever submit gets approved, but there are definitely some songs where it's like, okay, we're taking out like a sex reference, or we're taking out a gun reference or a drug reference, like something that might be in the radio edit, but is still, something that they feel might not be on brand for them. So I submit songs to him, and if there's a words or lyrics in it that I feel are inappropriate, I'll take them out in advance. Sometimes he's cool with what I send him. Most of the time he is, because we've worked together 5 years now and we're kind of on the same page. Once in a while he's like, yeah, take this other lyric out. And sometimes it's not even, something he would want out, but he's just trying to play it safe because, he has bosses and he reports to the GM and the ownership. And so, he just would sometimes rather play it safe, obviously, than hear from them. So the day of a game, I go in and we have to be at the stadium 5 hours before kickoff, which is pretty crazy. My friend EJ, who works for the Cowboys, actually, they have to be there 6 hours before kickoff, which is even crazier. So in the 5 hours before kickoff, what we do is we go in, we have about a 2-hour period where we do prep work. We basically get the script, which is usually probably 20 some pages long. And it has like 5 or 6 columns in it. And like one column is what's on the video board. One column is what's on the LED rails between the upper deck and the lower deck. One column is what kind of audio is playing, whether the audio is coming from a video source, whether the audio is coming from, me. And then there's a column for, there's PA reads, like all of them are numbered, like everything the PA announcer says in a day. He has a big script, and like the first thing that he says is A1 and the second thing is A2. And so it's actually easy when we're all on headsets, because we're all on comm headsets and we're talking and we're like, okay, we're going to read A1 right now. So everybody knows exactly what element of the show is being read and is happening at that moment. So as the game goes on, so basically when I get in there, that first 2 hours, I'm planning what I'm going to play at certain moments. Like I'll see, okay, the first quarter we have, a presentation for, a Hall of Fame player. The third quarter we have a presentation for, a veteran. And so you kind of figure out, especially the special moments, like, okay, this is the music bed I want to use for this. This is the music bed, because obviously not every music bed is going to be appropriate for every type of element. If you're welcoming a veteran versus you're welcoming a high school team that just won their, local football championship. So that's the first 2 hours. Kind of toward the end of that 2 hours, we have a small group meeting with the entire group of us, which is probably about 40 some people. We have like 6 cameramen. We have 3 replay people. We have the technical directors that run the video switcher. We have the PA announcers, spotters. We have an A1 audio engineer that runs a full audio board. We even have 2 Chiron people that basically they make all the overlays that go on the screen. So when you see, end of first quarter stats and you see all those numbers in there, somebody made that in Photoshop 20 seconds before it went up on the board. These things are all made live during the show and then put up on the video board. So we have a meeting. We talk about anything special that might be going on that day. Then they give us an hour lunch break, dinner break, breakfast break, whatever time of the day the game is. And they feed us and we get to sit down and eat and kind of hang out a little bit. And then we go back in 2 hours before kickoff, because that's when the stadium opens. So at that point we're working. And then, we just kind of roll into the game. It definitely, football gets very intense because you never know what's going to happen. We don't find out what's going to happen or when a commercial break is going to happen until usually 2 or 3 minutes before, like the network will radio up to us and say, hey, we're going to have a commercial break after the next change of possession. And so sometimes, for instance, this happened, I think my second season there, someone's punting. I forget if it was us or the other team. Someone's punting and we're going to go to a commercial break. We're going to have a military presentation. And in my brain, I'm getting ready for that. I'm getting ready for this presentation. And then all of a sudden the punt gets blocked and like the team returns it for a touchdown. And it's just in a second, you have to be ready to totally change gears. You know, you had this song ready to play for a military presentation. Now someone just scored a touchdown. So you always have to be prepared for the unexpected. And is
this all Serato? All Serato? You
so
have
actually, no. So we'll kind of, I'll go into that too. So for the Steelers, I use a program called ClickFX Pro. So I'm actually not mixing on this program. It's basically like an 8x9 grid, I think. And you're basically like clicking songs on this grid. Pre-game, we have a DJ, Derek Galiffa, that mixes the player warm-up music. So he mixes on the sidelines pre-game, and then I take over about 20 minutes before the game starts. But I'm always up in the booth in case, you know, especially Pittsburgh, inclement weather, in case his system would ever go down. I'm, you know, always kind of have to be there as an emergency backup. So yeah, so basically like my page is a grid and I'll have, you know, I have an offense page, I have a defense page, I have a pregame page, I have like a TV timeout filler page. Like we have different pages of these grids for different moments in the game.
Is that kind of like Ableton? You're like
No.
the grid side of Ableton that has the little squares that you could, it's almost like you're triggering samples.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's basically like that.
Is that something like that you keep on your personal computer, or is that all stored there?
No, that is all stored there. So like I load music on when I go in. And I do the same thing for
20-second clips or the full thing. They're just like you preset these.
It varies from song to song. So like for instance, I mean a lot of this, if it's like filler songs, you know, that we're using during TV breaks, those are usually full songs. Sometimes like we have like, you know, defensive songs we play when the defense walks on the field. And those are mostly hip hop songs. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll make like maybe an intro and then I'll like do a double chorus and then just it'll fade out and it'll be maybe a minute and a half because it only takes like 20-30 seconds for the defense to walk onto the field. So and if I would use the full song because of the lyrics, I'd be doing an insane amount of editing of lyrics that are never even going to get played because we'll never make it to that point in the song. So like sometimes if it's a song that I know is only going to be played for 20 or 30 seconds, I'll make like a minute and a half long edit. But, you know, if it's something that might be played during a commercial for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, while people are kind of just dancing and they're showing fans on camera, you know, I'll use the full song in those instances.
So for those that are listening, it's a lot of work is what Dave just said. It's a lot of work.
Yes. And it is very like intense. It's super fast moving. And the interesting thing about it, especially with football, is what we're used to as DJs in a nightclub or a wedding, whatever type of DJing you do, you're controlling the energy of the room as a DJ. Usually you're bringing the energy up, you're bringing the energy down. And you know it's about to happen. Whereas in sports, especially in football, you're responding to what happens, you know, which is different for us because we're normally in control of the energy of the room or space we're in. And in sporting DJing, you know, you're not in control. You're responding to what happens.
Totally.
So you have all this preset, 100%, all preset. You couldn't add stuff in midway.
No, I mean, you know, you'd have to upload it on the computer. I need to get it approved. So it very rarely happens. There was one time like last season, we had Chase Claypool scored 4 touchdowns in a game. We were going to show a highlight reel of it. And my producer's like, do we have 1, 2, 3, 4 by Coolio on the computer? And I'm like, no. But so I have my laptop with me there. So I literally downloaded the clean version on my laptop, put it on a USB drive. But I also, before I did that, I was listening to it in my headphones to just make sure 100% it was actually the clean version. And then I put it on the computer and I did all this while I was actually still paying attention to the game and, you know, and playing songs for the game. So once in a blue moon, you know, if there's something crazy that happens that we need to download something on the fly in the moment. We've done it, but maybe it happens once a season, usually once the game starts, Now, Pitt football, I use that same program. Pitt basketball, I do actually use Serato, and I have my turntable set up on the sidelines. So for basketball, I am actually DJing from Serato and, playing off of my computer.
We're going to transition a little bit. One of the things we wanted to talk about is you're one of the busiest DJs that we know. You stay super busy and you're doing doubles all the time in the same day. What are some tips you would give to younger DJs that want to get booked in a club or, just be busier and stay busier? What's some advice you would give?
So I would say really to ingratiate yourself. If you're a good the first advice is to make sure that your DJing is on point. Really, that's obviously step number one. But assuming that your DJing is on point, I would try to ingratiate myself to someone in your area that's busy. It could be a single op DJ, it could be someone that has a company. But I have, for me, I have several DJs, DJ Jan and DJ Hypnotizer are two of my oldest friends. They're both around the same age as me. I give them tons and tons of work a year. A few other DJs that are kind of in the city, Ryan Wilson, DJ Cake, DJ Fresh. Like there's several DJs in Pittsburgh that, I end up booking them out a lot. For instance, for Pitt football, sometimes they have these tailgates outside the stadium that are sponsored by the university itself. Some games they have two separate ones, and I book the DJs for those because, I'm doing the game and the athletic department comes to me and they're like, we need DJs for both of those. And I get a lot of weddings. I don't have a formal company name outside Digital Dave LLC, but I get a lot of weddings that I can't do. And I book, Mark or Jan for these weddings when I can't do them. As far as the club side goes, really the best advice I can give you with that is really just spending your time off. Any night you're not working, go to a club. And this is something that's been true when I started DJing in clubs in 2000, 2001. Like this is one of the few things, in my opinion, that hasn't changed in the past 20 years. Like whenever I was off, when I was 21 years old and I was not DJing, any night I wasn't DJing, I would go to a club and I'd hang out with the DJ there and I'd, maybe buy them a drink, bullshit with them, hang in the booth. And I would not, ever ask, hey, can I work here? Hey, this or that. But for the first probably 5-6 years of my career, almost every gig I ever got was from doing that. And like the DJ would be like, hey, we got to call off tonight. You're always here. Like, the crowd, you come and support the night. Like you want to fill in, or, we're starting a Tuesday here and I can't do Tuesdays because I have a day job. Like, do you want to do the Tuesdays? Because the venue and you like the venue and you support the venue. So from the bar standpoint, definitely, or nightclub standpoint, definitely go spend time supporting DJs, hanging out. Don't hang out with them 2 times and just be like, yo, can I get a gig off you? Like just develop a genuine relationship and it will naturally happen. Like all of my relationships in this industry with, nightclub managers, wedding planners, other DJs, like they're all genuine like relationships and friendships. And a lot of these people do things for me and help me and get me gigs, but like, I'm not in it. People will realize if you're coming at them in a fake manner, if you're just coming at them to try to get a gig off them. I'm involved in these relationships because I genuinely care about these people and think they're good people and think they're interesting people and they're my friends. And that's what fosters these beneficial relationships that can benefit you. I've seen DJs that have come and hung out someplace twice and then be like, well, I hung out twice at this club Dave was DJing at, and he never asked me to DJ. Well, someone else who was a much more genuine and nice person and probably a better DJ, probably hung out 20 times at the club. And then next thing you know, I might have gotten a different gig and they might have had a residency there because, they did that. But just develop relationships and be genuine.
And also be a good DJ, right? Be good enough.
Right.
You be good enough that we want you on. You can't
Right.
you can't just show up and suck and think we're gonna just put you on because of it. You still know how to DJ at the same time.
Right. I've always said my two qualifications are be a good DJ and a good person. And if you are both of those, I will definitely get you work. And if you're an okay DJ and you can use improvement, and someone like me or Drew or Fuse gives you advice, like take that advice. I've had younger DJs, a lot of them come to me and advice, and a lot of them have taken that advice. But I've had some where they've come to me and I've been like, this is what you need to work on and improve on. And they're like, oh, cool, I appreciate it. But then they just never improve upon that. One last thing I'm going to throw into this is make mixes, put mixes out there, whether you use Mixcloud, SoundCloud, upload them to podcast. If you do, they won't go to Spotify, but they will go to Apple Podcast. But make sure you have mixes, because I've had DJs come at me when I've been the booking manager for various different venues and asked to DJ. And I've always said, hey, like, do you have a mix? Like, I can listen to what you're going to sound like if I book you for this venue that I do the bookings for. And 9 out of the 10 of them are like, no, I don't have a mix. And a lot of them that don't have a mix, I say, well, just make me one and send me one. And they never send me one. So, you want to be able to show a venue what you're going to sound like if they book you to play in that venue. Otherwise, they're going to be nervous about booking you because they're not going to know what you sound like or what your taste in programming is.
Totally. And I think that with the make me a mix, if they don't, it just shows to the lack of non-work they're not going to put in that too.
Exactly.
Well, it's having your own resume. The mix is your resume. If you don't have it, why would I book you? I used to book venues too, and my big thing was I would say, one, do you have a mix? Would be number one, and then I would ask, what kind of equipment do you use? What program do you use to DJ? Off of those 3 questions, are you comfortable on the in-house gear? Those 4 questions, you could typically know exactly where that DJ is in his career.
Don't set your controller on top of $7,000 of Pioneer equipment.
If you can't use the in-house gear, I'm sorry, we're not booking you.
I've always preached this. This is another thing I've preached to DJs too, but that is a very good point. You should know if you want to DJ and especially nightclubs. I know a lot of bars now don't even have gear. They make DJs bring in a controller or something, but especially nightclubs. Like if you want to DJ in a legit nightclub, you should know how to use, I would say, 3 different mixers, and which would be, the Pioneer battle mixers, whether it's the S7, S9, S11, the Rain battle mixers, the 62, 72, well, there's no 62s around anymore, but 72s. And then, the Pioneer larger 4-channel like DJM 900s, and then know how to use CDJs and turntables. And you don't have to use them every day. You don't have to like them, but you need to know how to use them. I remember my first gig I ever got in Vegas. DJ Shift booked me at Taboo on when they used to do the Sunday night service industry party. Taboo was in the MGM Grand. It was a smaller venue, but it was like it was an ultra lounge. And it was when ultra lounges first got big, and it won like ultra lounge of the year, like 2 or 3 years in a row. And, Shift booked me there. This was right before I started using Serato. It was partially why I started using Serato. So when I started, when things went to CD, I was a vinyl DJ. I hung on to vinyl really late because I was like, I don't want to go to CD unless this is definitely a thing. So I finally go to CD. And then like 2 or 3 years later, Serato comes out. And I'm like, I just finished switching from vinyl to CD. Like, I don't want to switch again unless Serato is really here to stay. So I was a hanger on to CDs before switching to Serato, using CDJs and, Pioneer mixers. And so then I got booked at Taboo by Shift. I said, what's the gear there? And he was like, we have, I think it was an 800, a DJM 800 and turntables and a Serato box, in essence, an SL1. But when it was in the SL1, it wasn't even called SL1. It was just called a Serato box. And so I said to myself, I guess I'm buying a MacBook, loading a bunch of music onto it. And in the next 2 months before this gig, I'm learning how to use Serato because I'm not, and I played on other people's Serato. I mean, I knew how to use the Serato. It was more buying the laptop and putting all the music on it. But for me, I was like, I'm not going to miss on this opportunity to play my first gig in Vegas. And on top of that, I'm not going to be that dude who's like a nobody who's getting a chance to play at a really big venue in Vegas and be like, oh, well, I need this or that. I need CDJs and I need a place to put my 6 CD binders or whatever, you know, like I know the score, but a lot of 22-year-old DJs aren't like that. And they think even, you know, with no name value that they deserve to be catered to, and they're going to get pushed out the door really quick that way.
Yeah, I get a lot of dudes that, you know, I feel like just want to plug in their USB stick and play an hour's worth of tech house and bounce right now.
Yeah, and that's fine. But if you do that, you then go to the right show. You know, then you're relegating yourself to being like a dance music opener or something. You know, you're not going to be an open format DJ with, you know, USB full of, you know, an hour or even a couple hours of tech house on it. You know.
10
Totally.
tech house songs that equal an hour.
Yeah. So one of the other questions we have is on Alex's podcast, he talked about shadowing you and going from a wedding over to a club, and you were changing while driving. And this sounds super dangerous, but give us some insight on how you were able to pull it off, working doubles, you know, and triple work days.
We don't necessarily need to know your clothes, how you change clothes in between gigs. More of just how are you pulling off doubles and triples? To me, it's bonkers. You know, I've done it. I've sent my boy to go set up the gear and had someone else try and tear down gear, and it is a nightmare. I stress the fuck out of it. I don't know how you're doing this almost every day or every weekend. I mean,
so I'll go through one of the most common days that I have of quote unquote, you know, triples, which would be having a pit football game and then a wedding and then a nightclub after that. That's one of my most common 3 gig days. And so I'm going into Heinz Field, 8 a.m., you know, for a noon pit game. I'm usually having someone set up my wedding, although depending on where the wedding is and what time it is, sometimes I'll have the luxury to go and set it up myself, but I'm usually going to have someone set it up just so I don't even have to stress out about it. One thing that's great, my friend Ryan Wilson, who I mentioned earlier, he does a lot of weddings himself too, and he has a big enough trailer that can fit his gear and my gear. So there have been days where he's had his own wedding and I've just paid him to set up. We've loaded both my gear and his trailer. He goes and sets up my wedding first, and then he goes and, you know, sets up his own. And I just throw him some money to go in and swing by my venue and set up for me.
To interject, do you ever hire a production team and just give them your rider and say, hey, set this kind of stuff up, or it's always your gear?
I've done it once or twice, but it's usually my gear. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like I'm very picky about my gear. I mean, for my lighting, I have a Stereotubes. I think I'm I don't know if I've seen anyone else in Pittsburgh with them, maybe photographers, but I don't think there are any real DJ production companies that have those yet. And I mean, a lot of the companies, I mean, I have ETX speakers and I have some various RCF, and a lot of the companies that I could pay a tech company for, I don't feel like they're going to have as high quality of gear as, you know, they're not going to have bad gear, but they might have like, you know, QSC, which I don't mind the QSCs. I think the QSC K series sounds good, but I don't think it's an ETX or an RCF speaker.
It's pretty standard, the QSCs. And anytime I see a production house, they're usually K8s, K10s, and they have them all around the room, maybe one sub if you're lucky. But yeah, I'm never impressed by the in-house or just those things. So yeah. I'm just curious
I wonder if the K series is so popular for the production companies because the casing is metal, so it can like probably handle a beating more than like wood or plastic casing of a lot of other speakers.
Those things are beasts. I would say why they're so popular is because I remember I was using the Eon, the JBL Eon G2s were the go-to speaker that had the amps built into it. And that was a 15, and those things would just fall apart halfway through. It turned to mud. And then the QSCs came out, and it was a 12-inch that sounded better. And I think they could be out in the rain. Their warranty is so freaking good, number one. they just last forever. So I think people, and they're fairly cheap. So I think a lot of people just loaded up on them for a while. They were the go-to speaker. People still have them.
Yeah, and I think I will say this. I think that QSC, you know, originally Eon was like the first super popular powered speaker, and then Mackie came in second, and Mackies were pretty shitty as well. And I feel like QSC made the first good, you know, really good quality powered speaker, and I feel like people have surpassed it since then. But because they made the first one, I feel a lot of people probably latched onto them.
100%.
Yeah, as far as QSC goes. Yeah, the other thing about the Mackies, which is an entirely different rant for another time, but the woofers would always blow in them, and I always wondered. I'm like, you're designing the amp that's inside this speaker specifically for this speaker and this woofer. Like, how can it blow so easily? Like, I know you could really force the issue, but they blow very easily. And I'm like, you made this amp for this speaker. Like, how is it so powerful that it blows really, really easily? It would drive me crazy.
They had a top too that I can't remember if it was the 350 or the 450, but if it was in the sun, it would just overheat and the whole thing would just shut off.
I think I had the 450. I think that was like the 15-inch, you know, powered Mackie. But anyway, so back to, just because I don't want to lose the rest of the question. So I'll go from a pit game to a wedding. Then I'll go from a wedding to the club. The club I'm not going to have to play at until midnight. You know, usually they'll have either, you know, an opener or a mix or something on until I get there. And so
what time is this?
Midnight is around midnight. 11:45 is usually when I'm starting at the club. I mean, I'll start kind of when I get there, but that's around usually when I'm getting there from a wedding that ends at 11, which is the typical time most weddings end at in Pittsburgh. So yeah, I'm definitely sometimes between gigs changing in the car. I mean, the night I was with Alex, I changed in the car, but not while I was driving and operating the vehicle. I changed, you know, when the car was parked. But I have changed it. You know, I'm not changing while I'm like the car's moving, but I've changed it like stoplights and like segments. Okay, this stoplight, I'm going to like, you know, change my shoes and whatever. But like I've had to do that because it's like cutting things really close. Now I could definitely eliminate the clubs from those nights. I mean, the pit game I have to do, the wedding I have to do. I could eliminate the club add-on at the end. And it's honestly, in a day like that, it's the lowest money of the 3 gigs. But that's where I started in this industry. I love nightclubs. I started I started at a roller rink in high school, but like once I was, 21, nightclubs were kind of my full-time thing for probably a good 10 years before I got into a lot of weddings. And, it was 15 years into it before I got into sports. So for me, like nightclubs, just that's my passion. They make me happy. And I really genuinely do love weddings and sports, but nightclubs are where I fell in love with DJing. I feel like I'm just that part of the night is for me. Like it's not for the money. It's for, my happiness.
I totally get that. That's when the rest of the stuff you're doing, and by the time you get there, you're like it's almost like a breath of fresh air. Like, oh, finally I get to do me.
Also, I think it keeps things relevant for yourself when you're doing the bars and clubs still when you can. You're in there, you're the guy, like you're the trusted guy, you're the guy the young people are seeing out. So when they do go to get married, it's like, hey, Dave's the one I want. He's the one I heard when I was partying at this place and this and that.
Yeah, definitely. And I still to this day get definitely like, I mean, my Sunday night spot that I play every Sunday at the Flats,
Napkins.
Yes, that's the napkin spot. And I've played there now for 4 years on Sunday nights. And I once in a blue moon, I play there on on a Friday or Saturday, but I mainly just play Sunday nights there. And I booked probably 3 or 4 weddings in just the last year alone that specifically are regulars of that Sunday night party that, booked me because I'm there. The other thing to say about that too, I was telling another DJ this recently that I was doing a consulting session with, and we were talking about bars, and he's a wedding DJ and was talking about he doesn't do a ton of bars. And I said, it's great even if you're a wedding DJ in the off season to at least dip your feet into bars a little bit. You don't have to do a ton. You don't have to do like 2 or 3 a week, but even if you do 1 a week or every other week, the reason I think it's great for someone who's a wedding DJ is that I always say part of why, in my opinion, I'm such a great wedding DJ right now is because I was DJing clubs in 2010. And part of, in my opinion, the reason I'm going to be a great wedding DJ in 2030 is because I'm DJing in clubs now, because you know those tracks that were maybe not like a radio track, but people still party to back in the day, like
three
Drake,
times.
Exactly. No, but like something
2010.
like Drake and Nicki Minaj, Up All Night, was like, that wasn't a radio hit. People that came up in that time, like, loved that song. Or like early Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa in Pittsburgh. Like in Pittsburgh, if someone wants to hear Wiz Khalifa, like, and they're, not a 55-year-old white dude, they don't want to hear Black and Yellow. Like, people want to hear shit from his early mixtapes. I got a request for In the Cut by Wiz on Sunday night at the Flats. So like, same with like Mac Miller, like people want to hear, stuff from almost before they were super mainstream, in Pittsburgh. And I know that stuff from being in the club scene, and some DJs might not know that stuff, if they're not in the bar and club scene.
I totally agree with you. I was doing a Thursday college night. I still use a lot of the sets that I would just try out and practice. And, that's how I've kind of whittled it down to the core 3 or 4 songs that work from that night. And even the same as you, just DJing back in 2010, I keep saying this on this show. I feel like I'm cheating half the time. I keep bringing back old sets, and I just feel like I'm cheating. I have the cheat code already.
I heard you say that, and I've done that. I've had routines that I've like retired, and I've just like, I used to do this routine every night, and then I'll completely retire songs for a long time. I think I might have told you this in our 3 times conversation. I probably went at some point like 5 or 6 years without playing it, or maybe playing it once a year if it was a request or something. But like, I've really sometimes will just retire a song for a long time and then bring it back. And it's just like, I'll start playing it all the time again, because I'm like, okay, it's been gone long enough that people want to hear it again.
So on our last episode, Audio One was saying, I guess Crate Hackers on their app, you're able to upload old CSV files from your old Serato. If you still have the same history, you can go back in there and export that CSV file and upload it into Crate Hackers and export that whole playlist into a crate.
Oh, wow.
So you could go back to those old 2010s. I know my Serato, I think the last time I redid it was 2012. So I still have a lot of those old nights saved in there.
Yeah, I think mine goes back to 2016, maybe. Yeah, I think I redid it at that point. But I save all I kind of have them in like a single crate of like just old stuff that, I usually keep the folder closed so it's not junking up my Serato view. But like, if I play at a club, and usually if I have residencies where I'm there, once a week or a couple times a month or something, I'll usually make a specific folder for that residency. And say that venue closes, I'll still take that folder and just kind of archive it and keep that folder in my Serato. It'll be hidden, but it'll still be there so that if something comes up that maybe, that vibe would fit, I'll kind of just go through. I won't probably reuse the folder itself, but I'll look through it for song ideas.
I 100% do the same thing. And I know you were not exactly key in getting the Serato song plays into it, but you did get everybody riled up about it. And maybe we need to get everybody riled up for searching playlists. Searching titles of playlists inside of Serato, because I do the same thing. I have one that's just old playlists. It might have been just a party that I did that I'll throw in there. So if I could search that party name and I don't have to go through this crazy list of buried song crates, would be great.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, it was funny with the playlist thing. I definitely commented on it quite a bit back in the day. Yeah, as you said, I'd love to think that I played a part in it, and I definitely tagged Serato a few times, but I'm sure it just was going to happen organically. But it was funny. I once met a guy who was like one of the vice presidents of Serato, And I can't remember for the life of me now who introduced me to him. Someone introduced me to this guy at DJ Expo in Atlantic City, and he was one of the vice presidents. And I actually asked him to his face about play count, and he looked at me with a dead serious face and said that he had never heard a DJ want that or ask about that. And I'm like, either like you're totally clueless or you're the best liar in the world, because and the crazy thing is it wasn't like a complex feature to program. Like I'm not a computer programmer, but I know enough about computer programming to know that just like the way something like that works, it's basically just the counting, it just adds one number to the metadata every time you load the song.
Well,
like it's so simple.
Serato is really just an Excel sheet. So exactly.
So one of the things we want to talk about before moving forward with the Serato Top 5, which we'll do after this, is you described, you're able to work a football game, then a wedding, and then a club, and you still being very much of a club DJ. You've played at some pretty big spots all over the country, one being Lived. Tell us a little bit about that experience, and how do you prep for an out-of-town gig that's different from your hometown gigs in Pittsburgh?
Okay, so I'm going to go on a little tangent from that question real quick, because we all just had to take bathroom breaks, and I know Drew was going to edit the bathroom break gap out of the show, but I'm going to reference the bathroom break for one reason. Drew just talked about bathroom breaks in the club, and this is a great hack for bathroom breaks in the club, or having to avoid taking them. So I always go to the bathroom no matter what in a club. I try to go whatever time that club starts getting busy, like a peak hour time. Like, if it's going to start getting busy at 11:30, I'm going to go at 11:15. You always go like kind of right before you hit peak hour. But what I do, if you want to drink in the club, so if you're going to drink anyways, like I'll either do shots and just like drink maybe like Red Bull, one or two Red Bulls, or shots and water, but you got to pace yourself with the water, because like Drew was saying to me on the break, you can't just guzzle water the whole night. You're going to be in the bathroom nonstop. My night at a club, if I'm drinking, is maybe like 4 or 5 shots and like 2 Red Bulls. And so then you don't have like much more, maybe a little over 20 ounces of liquid that you're drinking through like your whole set. And you can usually make it through the night. I definitely try never to drink beers or, mixed drinks when I'm DJing in a club, because that's going to make you need to go to the bathroom a lot more. And as we all know, for whatever reason, every nightclub ever puts the bathroom at the farthest spot away from the DJ booth.
And there's no back bathroom almost 90% of the time. I don't know how everyone just shares the same one. Wait,
I know,
question though, those Red Bulls, and maybe I'm just getting older, but man, they've been giving me worse hangovers than if I drink when I wake up. I don't know how you're doing 2 Red Bulls. I feel like I'm wrecked off one when I wake up in the morning, I can
hang with them, but
energy drink is fine, but Red Bull for whatever reason just crushes me. It's
a dehydrant. I mean, it dehydrates you when you drink them, so that would make sense why your hangover is worse. I also am the same way as Drew. I can't drink them anymore. I get buds that come in like this past Saturday, and they're like, "Let's do bombs," and I'm like, "Bro, I first off, I'm not drinking. I'll do one with you, and that's it. That's it. Straight shots of whiskey from here on out."
Jaeger is 100% cut off from my repertoire. That is a fat no. I don't care what it's mixed with. It is a no, more a no.
So getting back to the question about prepping for gigs out of town, prepping for club gigs out of town, especially, and most of my out of town gigs, I will usually go through like kind of an extra process of preparing for this one specific gig. I'll try if I can, a lot of times it's a homie booking me. So I might be familiar with that homie and know what kind of sets they play. I'll obviously always ask the format. Some places lean a little more hip hop, some places lean a little more top 40, some places lean a little more dance oriented. So I'll always ask. It's great when you talk to a DJ about it, because they can give you a better idea of the real format. Sometimes when you talk to like a promoter or a manager or an owner, they don't like speak DJ, I guess, as well as they might interpret something different than we do. So I guess the language that you're going to hear from a DJ is going to be a little bit different than the language that you're going to hear from a promoter. So
they say just keep it fun. do you keep
Yeah.
it fun?
Exactly. But I mean, I've had some fun gigs over the years. I remember when I played Wood Tavern a few times in Miami, which is a great spot. And they have two rules there. The one rule is no drops, nothing with drops, because they were trying to be, they were in like the Wynwood Art District, like they were trying to be the anti nightclub venue. So no drops was one of their rules, and their other rule was that the DJs had to play what they wanted to play. And they actually had like a DJ, like a sign in the DJ booth, like no request DJ at work. So shout out to the homie Kaz who brought me down there a few times, but that was a fun spot. Going back to Live specifically, Live was actually interesting in that they did tell me their Wednesday night party. So all their party nights of the week are kind of like have a format. They have, dance music Saturdays. They have the hip hop night on Sundays. And Wednesday night was kind of more a college-y night. And they're like, it's open format. The problem with open format, with saying open format anymore, is that sometimes open format means actual open format, which means my DJ collective set, Drew, which you heard, where you could be playing everything from like UGK and Too Short to like Celine Dion and Avril Lavigne and Backstreet Boys, and just be literally all over the map. And sometimes open format means hip hop and dance music. That's what it, more often than not, what it does mean is just hip hop and dance music, so it's hard to,
I feel like the true open format DJs almost don't exist anymore. So when these promoters are saying open format, they're just saying just play the popular stuff, whether it's pop or hip hop.
I remember once playing an open format gig in Pittsburgh, in my hometown, and I was told specifically to play open format. At 11:30, a bunch of girls are like belting their throats out to Avril Lavigne, and like the manager comes up and is freaking out on me because play more hip hop, and I'm like, everybody in the room singing, and you told me to play open format. Now I did oblige and I changed it up, but I'm just like, I agree with you. It's open format doesn't mean open format anymore. But
stop making people have fun. This place is to look cool at. It's not to have fun.
But it's interesting. It's interesting because I think open format has gone so far away. In my opinion, I almost think it's like becoming cool again. Like if you're one of the rare DJs that can do that.
Totally.
If you can do it, people want it. It's just that most DJs nowadays can't do it right. So if it's been told, it's just play it safe, bud. Do the hip hop and the pop that we know is safe.
Right. And it's interesting because I kind of look at like, I have friends that are mostly club DJs, maybe hip hop club DJs or dance music or a little bit of, both that play, don't really play a lot of top 40 and play like the dance music and the club music, but the stuff that's, the cool trendy stuff, playing RL Grime, or if you're going to play a throwback, playing, UGK or something like that. And then, you have the DJs that are, playing super poppy, cheesy stuff. And sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes I'm just like, yeah, like, why can't I just combine the two of those styles together? Why can't I play UGK and Celine Dion in the same set? Because it can work for sure. And trust me, like when I play at Cavo, when I play at my Saturday night residency, I am trying to like make it cool. And I really don't play very much even top 40 there. Like it's pretty much, hip hop and dance music and Latin. I do actually play a decent amount of like reggaeton and stuff there too as well. But, it's all about the vibe of the venue. But the place I was playing Avril Lavigne was a party bar. So I'm like, I'm supposed to be playing this here because it was a place that used to be a nightclub, and they kind of, so they have moving heads and they have a light tech, but they kind of rebranded it and it's a little more casual of a vibe now. It's not as, nightclubby of a vibe. It's got a lot more like woods and brick and warmth to it than, like the normal nightclub style where it's like black walls and just super heavy dosage of lighting. So
totally. But one of the things, you have been DJing long enough, and Drew and myself, to now know like the difference when you're kind of in one of those places and what it kind of means, and reading between the lines of what that is. Like, oh, this is kind of a cool kids club. So yeah, I'm not going to play Miley Cyrus Party in the USA. I am going to keep the vibe a little more like quote unquote cool. So there is a difference to that, and knowing when it's time and when it's time to let loose.
And even if
Yeah.
you're a resident, you could probably grow that night and let the owner would slowly over time start understanding it. But just coming in as a headliner or just a one-off, most of the time they're just not going to get it. It's, you just got to play the format.
Right, right. Although I like to push, if I'm out of town, I don't like to push boundaries a ton, but I like to push boundaries a little bit. And if it's a club that's a little more comfortable with hip hop, I might, play a little more dance music than normal, or throw in a top 40 sing along that's a throwback. Or if it's a club that's a little more comfortable with EDM, I might throw in a few extra like hip hop versions of that are like EDM remixes. Like I try to not overly push people, but I feel like sometimes when you push those boundaries just like a little bit, like just a nudge, it actually gets great results. Cause you want to be, if you're a guest from out of town, you do want to be a little bit different. You don't want to be a complete night and day from their resident, but you do want to differentiate yourself and show why it's worthwhile to bring you in as a guest. So you do want to change things up a little bit. But going back to Live, so when they said open format to me, I was just like, okay, like this is all I'm going to get is open format. And I've never done this before, but like Live was a big deal. So I actually made 2 crates. Like I made one crate that was kind of the hip hop and dance music open format. And then I made one crate that was, just kind of the open format. And so, and kind of more all across the board. And so I had both ready. There was a DJ, an opener on before me. So I got to see what they were playing, although the room was like slow a lot of the time that they were playing. And they were kind of playing like just kind of the 90 BPMs walk-in hip hop music that you played. I decided to kind of start out, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go in, and I felt like I wanted to play something that was something I did as my first song in there. So the first thing I played was the Post Malone, not Post Malone, the artist, but Sam Felt, Post Malone, and Taylor Swift 22 bootleg that I made. So it's the Taylor Swift 22 vocals over the Post Malone by Sam Felt instrumental. I literally just made that. I don't even know if I played it out in public yet. And I was like, I really feel like this is going to work well. Kind of hitting like a throwback top 40 sing along, but it's also kind of more current popular dance song with it. So, I'm kind of appeasing both sides. And that was what I decided to start out with. And I probably kept it more hip hop than anything, but I definitely had those moments where I throw in the little curveballs. And I remember playing Mac Miller Knock Knock down there, and the light tech's head almost snapped when he just jerked and looked at me, and was like, he was just so excited and blown away that I played Mac Miller in Miami. Because I feel like Mac Miller is because he didn't have any super blatantly popular radio hits. I feel like he's an underplayed artist by DJs. Granted, I could be a little biased because I'm from Pittsburgh, but I've definitely played Mac Miller outside of Pittsburgh and always still gotten great reactions from playing his music outside of Pittsburgh. But I feel like because he just never had that like super heavy radio hit, I feel like a lot of DJs, underappreciate him and don't give him as much play as they should, because a lot of people really loved Mac and loved his music. And I don't think he gets enough love from DJs sometimes.
And speaking of Mac Miller and all that, he's kind of, you can play a lot of his music in Cincinnati. He got a pretty big fan base in Cincinnati because Clockwork, his DJ, is from Cincinnati. So, and actually, this podcast is coming out next Tuesday, but so when this airs, it'll be the prior week. Clockwork was just on Phenom and Jupiter and Neek's podcast, the 5 on 5 podcast. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah, I've met Clockwork once or twice in Pittsburgh. I think we actually played a party together once. But yeah, so that was how I kind of entered Live. I usually don't plan 2 separate sets, but because it was such a big venue and a big deal, and I didn't know what to expect, I did definitely plan 2 crates for that venue. And I went with the crate where I called one Live A and one Live B. B was kind of the backup plan, but I went with A and I stuck with A. One of the craziest things about playing there well, two of the craziest things for me was one, when I walked in, I literally went to open up my laptop and set it up, and the light tech comes over and he literally takes it from me, sets it on the laptop stand, plugs in they had Rain 12s, plugs in the Rain 12s, plugs in my laptop, and then tests both sides to make sure that they're working. It was just like, I'm not to have to do anything but actually DJ, which that was like wild to me. Like, okay, like I can deal with this, but that was kind of cool. But the crazy thing about it is it's such a big room and it's such a high ceiling and almost cavernous space that with sometimes like people, I'm pulling down the volume and thinking people are singing along, and I'm like, geez, it doesn't really sound like that loud like the sing-alongs. And then when I watch back some video, I had a videographer there do a video shoot for me and take some video the night. And I'm listening to like the raw video files. I'm like, oh, wow, like it was really loud, but it's just such a big space that like the crowd doesn't even sound loud because, the ceiling's like, I don't know what it is, 4 or 5 stories tall.
Are
Totally.
the managers standing over your back, kind of making sure you don't go too far off, or anybody ready to run up on you?
No, everybody was pretty cool. The director of operations of Live, who he actually is not involved in booking the DJs. They have a separate kind of company. I mean, it's a company that works just with their clubs, but they have, like Live and Story, but they have a separate company that books the DJs and the entertainment. But the actual director of operations of the venue that handles all of the actual, like, the bartenders, the bar staff, opening the doors, inventory, all that kind of stuff. His name is Elvis, and he's actually like a good friend of mine of almost 20 years now. Like, he was from Pittsburgh and we kind of came up together. He was a manager and I was a DJ in the club scene. So I definitely didn't have to worry about him. And he said that like everybody gave him like great feedback, like from the promotion company. But like, yeah, I think there were some people there from the promotion company that does or entertainment company that does all the bookings, but nobody from that company, like, they talked to me during the day that day, just make sure I'm all good. But nobody even came up to me from them that night. Like, everybody was pretty chill. Like, I think the general mindset, once they finally vetted you enough to book you at Live, is like, unless something serious is going crazy, like that, what you're doing and you're going to be trusted and get some free reign to like do your thing. But I got great feedback on it. Sadly enough, it was like very shortly before the pandemic. So I'd love to get back down there at some point. But, it was kind of crazy that, it happened. And then a few months later, the pandemic happened. And, since things have been reopened, I've been so jammed up in Pittsburgh that I haven't really gotten to travel much for clubs because, I've been so locked down up here with weddings and corporate events and everything that was postponed from 2020.
That's cool to hear kind of your insight and your take on playing there. I feel like not every day, you get to hear somebody actually express some, like, everybody always is like smoke and mirrors, they want to act, everybody wants to act like things are way cooler than it is. So I appreciate your honesty and telling everything that you've told us today, with, the football game and just your experience and traveling and DJing and all that. I think it's cool to hear. And I think a lot of the listeners will think it's cool to hear too. But moving forward, we're going to go ahead and get into our Serato Top 5, if you got that pulled up. And we'd love to hear what your top 5 most played in Serato.
So I'm going to go through and I'm going to run through actually two things here. I think I pulled both of them up. So I have both my top 5 in Serato, my top 5 actual played tracks, but I have, and I know we're going to, I think, talk about this a little bit. I have a sell-fi page where I basically put together like a lot of different crates that DJs can buy off me, which aren't the actual songs, but basically list of like, from my experience, like the top songs in different genres. Like if you're playing an emo pop punk night or boy bands or hip hop, R&B, EDM, Latin music. And so one of the things I did on there was I did my top 100, literally just period, most played songs on my Serato. But when I did for this sell-fi page, what I did was I actually figured out my most played songs because, for instance, like the number one song on there, I have like 8 different versions of it in my Serato. I played each version like, one version 30 times, one version 20 times. So, my number one most played song in Serato isn't really my most played song because I only have one version of that song in there. But so I want to go through both real quick. Okay, so the number one song on there is 1-2 Step by Sierra. I think I've heard that reference before in someone's top 5.
I think it was Simo's.
But yeah, that is my number one most played track. And as far as that goes, that's one of those where I literally pretty much scratch and drop that in at the beginning. And this is part of actually my programming seminar, Drew, that, from DJ Collective. I talk about this song as an example, what we were talking about earlier with Trap Queen. They're literally record pools that have an intro to 1-2 Step. And then after the 8-bar intro, it starts out at this beat is automatic, and it completely takes out the entire beginning with ladies and gentlemen. And like everybody loves to sing like the ooh-wee. Everybody, that's like the best part of the song. Like the first 8 bars of the intro are the best part of that song. And I've literally seen multiple, it's not just one, multiple record pools edit out that beginning of the song, which is crazy.
I know I have one of those edits.
And I actually have one only to show DJs the difference between the two. So that is my number one. And that, I think part of the reason too that comes up as number one is because I can play that so many different places. Like it can be played at a wedding, it can be played at the casino, it can be played early night at like maybe like a hip hop club or maybe not like a super hard hip hop club, but like at a hip hop night or an open format night as kind of a warm up song, early in the night song. So it's got so many different uses. So I think that's why that's number one for me. Number 2 is Whatever You Like by T.I. That is interesting. And that's a song that I probably retired for a good like 6, 7, 8 years, like not playing it at all or once in a super blue moon. And then, I do that with songs like I was saying earlier. And then I'm just like, it's time for this song to come back. And I brought it back. Whatever You Like is, was number 2 on the list. And that I have an intro. It's an intro, but then the intro goes into the very beginning. So it doesn't go into the first chorus, but there's like, kind of I think it's only 4 bars. I don't think it's 8 bars, but it's just kind of like T.I. ad-libbing over like the intro synths, and then it goes into the song. So my number 3 file on there is actually 2 of these top 5 files are actually routine tracks that I have, which is my 6, 7, 9, 10 Crack Commandments routine. And so I literally, for that routine, I made in Ableton, I put both songs in one file. So the file has 6, 7, 9 by Fetty Wap and the 10 Crack Commandments by Biggie. So, and I have it all cue pointed so I can, kind of go back and forth and do my routine with that. For those of you who have not seen the routine, it's on my Instagram and probably easy to find somewhere, but it's where I use the cue points and, do 6, 7, 9 with the 10 Crack Commandments. And then basically kind of, I'm not looping it. I'm literally hitting the 6, 7, 9 live and then bring in Fetty Wap underneath it. My 4th song is High Hopes and Complicated routine, which is Panic at the Disco and Avril Lavigne. Again, 2 separate songs, but just I took Ableton, I put them into one file. And what I do with that is I have made an acapella out loop of High Hopes of the line, Mama Said Don't Give Up. It's a little complicated. I made a loop like an acapella out loop of It's a Little Complicated. And then I scratch in Complicated by Avril Lavigne at the beginning of that. Complicated is one of those ones, when I did this, I was like, I felt like I wanted to bring Complicated back. I felt like it would work, and it does work really well. But I felt like it was one of those ones I couldn't just play any old way and it would work. I felt like I had to have that right way to bring it in. And so that ended up being the right way to bring it in. So, and number 5 on this list is Pony by Genuine, just the original version. Again, I think I put that into the Sierra 1-2 Step category of it's just a song that's appropriate at so many different types of events, that I'm just able to kind of play it almost anywhere. And I think that's what gives it its high numbers. To look at when I made that list of my actual top 5 songs,
or not appropriate, I would say, with Pony, because anytime I've ever played it, then the stripper dances come out. It's appropriate, but it's funny how dirty everyone gets instantly once they have that.
It's one of those things where like the people that are in their 50s like still know and like the song, so like they're not offended by it. So
no, I agree. I'm just saying, kind of jokingly, it's not appropriate in that it makes everyone want to become a stripper.
It's like nobody's offended by the line "Pussy Wagon" playing in Grease Lightning because it's John Travolta from the 70s saying it. But if like the Baby was saying "Pussy Wagon," everyone would be offended by it. It's kind of one of those situations. But
totally.
Anyways,
I'm just dying because it's so true. It's so true.
It is. I mean, it's absolutely. I mean, I heard on Sirius XM, which I feel like scrubs things pretty clean. They play the Dire Straits "Money for Nothing" with the F word, not fuck, but the derogatory gay slur, and they still play that original version. Like they do not. It is not edited. But like I said, I'm assuming because if it doesn't, offend 55-year-old white people, it kind of just gets a pass. Like it's not saying it's right. I don't agree with it, but that's kind of the rules or unwritten rules.
I totally agree with you. There's so many songs where I'm playing it and thinking, how are old people just going crazy for this and they're okay with it, but I'm so offended by everything else.
Oh yeah.
People.
I mean, it's why, I mean, like, I even think I've seen like clips from Rolling Stone concerts where like they have like video in the back of like topless girls, like literally showing on the video screen behind the Stones. And I'm like, but like old people, if it's something that's hip hop related, it's like so offensive immediately. It's crazy. So this is my actual top 5 from when like I said, I would go in and like my number 1 is Sicko Mode. So I would add up 8 versions of Sicko Mode I play, and that comes out to like more versions, more
Are you
total
still
plays
playing that song now with
is he canceled now?
You know what's crazy? The weekend after that happened, every Travis Scott song I played got a bigger reaction even than it usually gets. Like I played No Bystanders. I played Goosebumps that weekend. I played Sicko Mode, and I mean, what happened at the concert, is a tragedy. And I'm mixed on it. I've read a lot about it. I definitely feel like there could be an argument made that Travis could have, should have, whatever, stopped the concert. I also, what I do believe is I do believe that he did not realize people, were dying or even near death, or I do believe that he absolutely would have stopped the concert if that was the case. He might have known that things were getting crazy. Obviously, those artists, they have in-ear monitors in, I know from being in clubs and stuff and just having headphones on, like, somebody could be shouting right next to me and I have no clue that someone's shouting at me because I have headphones on that are covering my ears.
Just performing in general, performing all that energy.
Right. You're focusing on the performance. So yeah, I hate what happened. It's tragic and it makes me very sad as someone that's attended concerts, and I know how many young people were involved in that. And I'm not even saying that there's maybe not some like legal culpability there, but I'm not trying to like not play Travis Scott songs anymore. I'm probably playing Sicko Mode a little less now than I used to. It's also partially because of, it's this getting a little older as a song. And I will say, I do think I kind of backed off my Travis Scott at like sports events, sometimes the Steelers will actually ask me when something happens with an artist, like a Chris Brown or something like that. Sometimes they'll actually say, Chris Brown happened before I was with the team. But someone like him, if I ever brought up Chris Brown and said, let's play this Chris Brown song, the Steelers would probably say, yeah, like, no, because, Rihanna, the situation, like, we don't want to play that, which I understand. So they didn't even say anything to me, but I kind of pulled the Travis Scott we had for now on my own, on my own volition. I went in and just kind of backed off that. But like at clubs and bars and weddings,
I still have R. Kelly come up on playlists. So some people just aren't paying attention to the news or anything that's going on.
I had a guy Friday that was like super pissed at me because I was like, yeah, man, I'm just not going to play the R. Kelly. There's a bar full of people. And my opinion on it is one thing, but there are plenty of other songs that I can play that get people hype, and that is the one that I don't need to play, because if half the bar gets sad because of it, then that's my job to know, like, hey, it's,
Or they don't
there's
know they
other songs.
requested it.
Well, yeah,
Right.
and that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's part of it too, is like, okay, I get it that you really want to hear that song, but bro, there's plenty of other songs that we can have a good time to.
I would say R. Kelly is one of the only artists I ever backed off of. And the one thing I'll play now once in a while, and it's only really at like a bar, like a party bar or something like that. I have a version of That's What I Like by Bruno Mars that has someone. So what happened was someone made a mashup of R. Kelly and Ignition and Bruno Mars. That's What I Like. And I forget who did this or where I found it, but there were like the timing on both of those songs didn't just jive well. And it was the mashup was like, it sounded good in parts. And then there were parts where I was just like, yeah, this part of Ignition over this part of the That's What I Like didn't make any sense. So I kind of redid it for myself and kind of laid it out better. But I sandwiched it in between. So I have the first verse of the Bruno Mars, then one verse of R. Kelly, and then I have the second verse of Bruno Mars, and then the song ends. And the only reason I have the second verse is because Scooter made that edit where it has the little salsa part at the beginning of the second verse that I forget if it was at VMAs or the Grammys or whatever when Bruno did that live. And I love that little part, that little salsa section. So that's why I have the second verse in there. But sometimes I'll play that at like a party bar, and you don't have the Ignition beat or anything. You just have the lyrics, and occasionally, I'll play it, and I've never gotten grief over that. I did really pull Ignition, the regular Ignition, out of my sets, and I really didn't ever play much other R. Kelly other than maybe throwing Bump and Grind in it, or like The End of the Night, or Your Body's Calling, something like that. And I did take those out pretty much of my sets. The Michael Jackson thing really like bothered me because people were getting so offended over that, and I'm like, the cases that were being discussed, like this guy, Michael, was vindicated. Like he literally was found not guilty in court of these same cases that this documentary is about. And like, I feel like to an extent, there's definitely always stuff that's worth getting fired up about. But I feel like in 2021, people like to just be fired up for the sake of being fired up. And I think sometimes people go a little overboard with it.
I agree with everything you've said is pretty much the same way I kind of feel with it all too. So,
but anyways, the rest of that top 10, and this was made in the summer, so maybe this is a little different by now, but because some of these songs I phased out a little bit. Good as Hell by Lizzo is number 2. I probably don't play that as much anymore. All Night by Chance is number 3. That I still definitely play a lot. It's like a great early night song, in my opinion, like when you're kind of just trying to gradually up the energy and being like the teens, kind of similar to 1-2 Step. Juice by Lizzo was number 4. That's probably the Lizzo song for me that's like lasted the longest. Like, again, not like some peak hour song, but it's just great, great vibe, kind of fun energy. I mean, I even play that at sporting events.
You play the original or the Chromeo remix? It's Chromeo remix, right?
I play the original. Of that one, I play plenty of other Chromeo remixes, but I play the original. I find like it's a good one. It kind of has like that older sound to it, so like older people like it, and younger people know what it is.
Yeah, I think maybe I don't believe there's a Chromeo remix because I'm a huge Chromeo fan. But Breakbot is what you're thinking of. Yeah. And the confusion there though is because Chromeo had a song called Juice. That's right. So I have I'm kind of mixed on this. I don't really play the Breakbot mix, but I played actually mostly the original. But Nick Bike has a blend he did called Nick Bike's Love Dance mix. And so I played that song. I would say that's about a third of my plays, and about 2/3 of my plays are the original. But like looking at here, my Serato history, I have 73 plays of the original clean, 48 of the original dirty, and then 23 of the Nick Bike clean, 16 of the Nick Bike dirty. So like, different venues I'm playing clean versus dirty. So, it's definitely, I have 4 versions of that I've played a decent amount of each of those versions. And so to get to I think we're at my last song on that top 100, which is The Box by Roddy Ricch. And that's something, again, by now I've kind of phased out, and that's I play it some still, definitely, but that's probably not number 5 anymore. Number 6 is No Hands, and No Hands might have overtaken it. And do not sleep at any kind of venue on No Hands. I play No Hands at weddings. I think a lot of wedding DJs are probably afraid to play No Hands, but dude, No Hands is a banger.
One of my biggest tracks the other night.
Agreed. So one of the other things we want to talk to you about before we get too far is just your thought process on making mixtapes, and also, some of your playlisting and what you and Nick Spadelli are doing with your DJ course.
Okay, so as far as mixtapes go, I do a lot of work when I'm putting together a mixtape, especially the last year. I've been putting together a lot of themed mixtapes, and I did an emo and pop punk one. I did 2 G-funk mixes. I did 2 New Jack Swing mixes. I've done 2 yacht rock mixes. I'm doing right now, I'm currently working on a freestyle mix. When I do these, granted, I know songs that are in all of these genres, and I know all these genres well, especially if I'm doing a mix for it, it's something I like. But I'll just go through and I'll Google top yacht rock songs or top freestyle songs. I'll use Google. I'll go through Spotify lists. I'll even go to Mixcloud and maybe listen to some other people's mixes of those genres, because I just want to make sure I don't miss anything. I have my own songs, my own things I like about that genre. But, I want to make these mixes for someone that loves that style of music. I want to make this mix super comprehensive. I've always said as a DJ, and I feel the same way about making a mix. When I play hip hop, I want to be as good as a hip hop DJ that plays hip hop every week. When I play tech house, I want to be as good as a tech house DJ that plays tech house every week. It's a lot of work to be that proficient in every genre you play, but I definitely do a lot of behind the scenes research work. So usually what I'll do, most of my mixes I do make in Ableton. If there are mixes, I've definitely recorded live sets a lot of places where those are clearly marked live set. But if it's not marked live set, it's, probably made in Ableton. So what I usually will do is I'll make a crate in Serato, and then I can still see the keys of all the songs and the BPMs of all the songs. So I'll take this list of maybe 80 songs, and maybe I'm only going to use 60 of them, or I have 100 songs and I'm only going to use 80 of them. But I have the full list, so I can sort it by BPM and I can sort it by key, and I can always be kind of figuring out what I want to put into the mix next. And so, yeah, I just kind of usually start from the beginning. I've had weird cases where when I did my 90s mix, probably my favorite mix I ever did.
The dope mix.
I did it for Club Killers Throwback Radio. And the 90s for me were I started 1990, I was in middle school. 2001, I graduated college. So the 90s to me were my time. That was my influential time of when I was most influenced by music. That mix meant a lot to me. And I did the first thing my first concept that I had that I wanted to do in that mix was the Vanilla Ice. And I cut out the MTV sample where he was talking about how he didn't sample David Bowie because he's their song went dun, 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 dun. And ours went dun, 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 dun. I was I have to layer this sample over actual Ice Ice Baby. So it was funny. I started that mix from the middle, and that mix is also funny in that I've spent probably close to 200 hours on that. And that's not an exaggeration. And I would work heavily on it. And then I take a break from it for a month or two, because it was a 90s mix. There was no rush to get it out before the songs got old. They're all 20, 30 years old anyways. And so then I'd come back to it and I'd be oh, I even have a better idea of how I can do this transition. Normally most mixes, I just sit down and plug away, in 1 week. I spend maybe 4 or 5 days and spend 3-4 hours on Ableton each day on them. But I've also found my mindset on mixes is that I've really found that people love mixes that get more specific with a style or genre or era of music, because there's so many just quote unquote open format mixes out there. And we were talking about with open format before, it's such a wide definition. People don't really know what to expect. Whereas if you have an open, like a mix that's just all emo and pop punk from the 2000s, or all freestyle from the 80s and early 90s, or all New Jack Swing from the 80s and early 90s, or, say you want to make, I've never done this, but say you want to make like a 90s alternative mix or something. Like, I feel like people will love that. And so part of my mindset with mixes and with DJing in general is I'd rather play songs that maybe not everybody likes, but like there's a lot of people that love. Like there's a lot of songs out there, like artists, Flow Rida, Maroon 5, whatever. Like a lot of people aren't bothered by Flow Rida or Maroon 5, but like how many people actually love them? Like, Nirvana and Tupac and Biggie, and like they changed Mac Miller, like they changed people's lives. Like their music meant so much to people. And then you have these artists that are it's just kind of like filler dance songs, And so I try to really focus on artists that I feel like mean a lot to people, because I feel like that's going to make this mix more meaningful and make them want to listen to it more.
I think it's great. And I think one of the cool things about, doing themed mixes and everything is that you can kind of use your creativity a little more as a DJ in that space with mixes, because not everybody's going to want to hear, the full hour of alternative 90s, at the bar or at the club. But if you put it all together really well in a mix, the people that do want to hear it will find it and they'll appreciate it more. I mean, even myself, I've done quite a few themed mixes, and Drew was a part of a themed mix that became a party that I did with the TRL one. I must have made that mix like 10 years ago. And then I've done 2 parties with it since. And Drew actually played one with me and played all TRL songs, including the hook only of POD, I'm Still Alive.
And a couple Dashboard Confessional routines in there.
Totally.
And that goes to something that like I preach so much to younger DJs. It's like, it doesn't have to be your whole night. And I'm sure there was plenty of like Britney and Backstreet Boys and NSYNC that were played, but like, don't let people leave a set of yours without playing something that might have made it memorable for them. Like you can play 80 or 90% quote unquote obvious songs, but make sure that there's something in that night, because you still remember that he played that song, years later, however long ago it was. Like play something in your sets that make your sets memorable.
I even snuck in William Hung, She Bangs. So it was
I wouldn't go that far, but
no, we were having fun. Me and Fuse were just hanging out and making bad edits, and
maybe I should make a sample. Maybe I should make a sample intro of She Bangs from William Hung into Ricky Martin, or vice versa.
A long time ago, Fuse sent me a cameo that he did for me. The whole thing is, just having fun. Like you said, it goes by so quick. When you move on to the other stuff, that's what they remember, is the ones that stuck out. Just that one or two different songs. Anytime a DJ would come to me and say, the bartenders keep complaining that I'm playing the same set. I said, well, they're not complaining about the sicko modes or the Flow Rider lows or any of that. They're complaining about you keep playing the 5 random songs over and over. The random ones are what everyone remembers. The same thing.
Right. You got to change up the random ones, You
got to change up the random ones. You definitely need them, but don't have that be your only 5 routines.
So tell us a little bit about what you and Nick are doing. And shout out to Nick Spinelli and the Nick Spinelli Show. It's great. Another great podcast Drew and I always talk about. We love what he's doing over there too.
Yeah. So shout out to Nick. And so Nick and I did last May, we did this DJ course together. What it was like a 5-day, 2 hours a day DJ course. We did a day version, we did a night version. Basically, we went into a lot of different topics. I talked about programming. He talked about wedding prep. We each did kind of a half hour or an hour on like hacks, like on little pieces of equipment and stuff like that would make our life easier, like things that you might not think of, like the bag that I use to put my cables in, or like he was talking about the little clips that he uses to clip his wires to his, I have them too, I forget the name, but they clip your cables to your speaker poles so that your cables are very clean. Gravity clips, that's it. So we did a day on that. We did a day on wedding prep. I did a day on crate management. So we talked about a lot of stuff in the class. that was just live. We pre-recorded it. We recorded it for the actual people in the class and let them keep the recording, but we didn't actually post it for sale. There was a lot of interaction, which was great, but because of all the interaction, we just didn't feel like it made as much sense to post it for, sale after the fact. But I do have plans to kind of record my parts of that and maybe, record like 2-hour long instructional videos and put them up for sale. And actually, funny enough, it's been on my mind to hit Nick up now that it's going to be like slightly slower season for DJs, maybe to see if he wants to do another class at some point here. And I haven't talked to him yet, but it's been something that's on my mind. But then the other thing that we've been doing is we've been selling crates. Nick started it. He encouraged me to do it. Basically been putting, crates up on Sellfy. My page that I have mine on is djdigitaldave.sellfy, SELLFY.store. And if you go to my Instagram, which is at djdigitaldave1, the number 1 at djdigitaldave1, I have like a one link or a link tree in my profile that takes you to everything. You can go to like my Mixcloud from it or my website, and you can also go to my Sellfy straight from my bio on Instagram. So what I have up there now, and I'm actually working on a few new crates as we speak that I'm hopefully will be up by the time this podcast airs. But I have like a top 50 disco era tracks, top 30 Latin tracks, EDM, an EDM list, 80s rock, 90s kind of open format, hip hop and R&B, Motown, emo, pop punk. And I have a boy band list. So I have 10 lists up there now, and that overall top 100 list I was talking about. So basically what I did with these lists is, and these lists that I did so far were curated towards like either a party bar or an open format event or a wedding. I'm trying to start working on some lists that might be more centered toward like a nightclub or more nightlife events, so that there's lists for everybody. What I did with my list, which Nick does not do with his are just kind of just the songs listed. And then I know Crate Hackers, which I have a file or two up there, a list or two up there, and I'm working with Aaron on maybe even getting some of these lists on there if we can figure out a format and a way to sell them in the right manner. But Crate Hackers obviously does the mixable order thing. Nick just did lists. What I did with mine, and it was a lot of work, but I tried to tier them from like, the most important songs to the least important songs. So, like on the boy band list, like I might have, Everybody or Bye 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 or, I Want It That Way near the top of the list, or even like classic, and then something like The Right Stuff by New Kids on the Block or like Summer Girls, might be on the list, but they're lower down the list, so I tried to tier these so that if you're not familiar with the genre, or even if you are familiar with the genre, obviously like the Motown list, the things at the top would be like Ain't Too Proud to Beg and, Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I called it Motown Era because I put Respect on there by Aretha Franklin. That might be the only non-Motown song on there. But basically, like these lists are tiered to not only help you if you need help with a certain genre, whether you just want more ideas or you're a starting beginner DJ and you just want to learn a genre. Maybe you know nothing about it, or maybe you know some about it, but you just want more ideas so you're not playing the same songs all the time. The great part about these lists in my mind is that, I kind of tiered them so that, song 1 is, if you're only going to play 5 songs, if you're going to play a boy band mini set or an emo pop punk mini set, what the 10 most important songs are, and maybe you need song 45 if you're playing a whole night of that genre. But if you're just mixing it in a mini set, you can just focus on like the higher ranked songs.
Yeah, I like that. Super necessary.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like I said, that's djdigitaldave.sellfy.store. And definitely, I put a lot of work into these, and I've had DJs that are both younger DJs and like veteran DJs buy them and say they've gotten great feedback from them. So
it's on your website?
So no, it's not on my website. It's a separate, it is
Sellfy,
a separate link. And I'll tell you what, this was not in the plans here, but I'm going to make a 10% discount code for listeners that'll be good to the end of the year, to like January or December 31st. So we'll make it DAF. Well, DAF 10. DAF 10, not daft, but DAF, DAF, and then 10 will be 10% off if you want to go check out the site. Again, was not even planned. I'm going to have to make sure I write that down so I program it in right away.
Well, we're honored. Thank you. That's rad.
But yes, for listeners, DAF 10 until December 31st will get you a discount.
All right, real quick, we got two quick questions we want to ask you. What's the Pittsburgh food? What's like if I'm visiting Pittsburgh? What is it? The Permane Brothers?
Yes, Permane Brothers. That's like the place you got to go to. Like I can give you tons of great food recommendations in Pittsburgh, but like obviously like you have the Skyline Chili. Like Permane Brothers is the place that you have to go to, in Pittsburgh. And so what it is they put fries, coleslaw, and tomato on the sandwich. So it's like a meat, they have lots of different kind of meats. A lot of them are like, corned beef pastrami. They have a cheesesteak. They have a burger. I get the pastrami. I think that's one of the bigger, more popular sellers that they have. And so they have like the meat, and they cook that on a flat top and with a slice of provolone cheese. And then they put it on the sandwich, and you get coleslaw, French fries, and a tomato slice on top of that. And the bread they use, it's this thick cut Italian bread, and they get it fresh like every day. They probably get it fresh like a couple times a day. So really good.
Is this throughout the whole city, or is it just one location?
So they've actually branched out into like Eastern PA now. There's some out in Philly and like center of the state, Harrisburg, I think might even have one. But it's originally from Pittsburgh. When I was growing up, there was like 3 or 4 of them maybe. And now there's probably 20 in Pittsburgh. I mean, they even have them in the stadium itself. Like there's one in Heinz Field. And there's actually 2 or 3 in Fort Lauderdale, which is super random, but those were some of the early ones because there were so many Pittsburgh people that would like go down there and they would live down there or be in the military and stationed down there that they actually asked the company to put Permane Brothers down there. So there's actually one on A1A right on the beach with like palm trees in front of it, which I've been to.
Beachfront Avenue?
Crazy. Yep, A1A Beachfront. Dude,
because there's a skyline down there too. Now, and it's like in the Tampa area, but for the same reason, so many Cincinnatians were traveling down there. There's one down there.
Have you had it, Fuse? Have you had one of those sandwiches?
I have, but it's been a while. Dave will know how long it's been. I played at a spot in Pittsburgh called Bar Room, and that's when I got the sandwich. So that's probably been maybe 8 to 10 years. Probably
at least, yeah. At least, yeah. That place has not been around for a while.
Yeah.
In fact, right now that building is no longer. That building is a parking lot now. So,
one other thing we were just going to ask is if you had any advice to give young Digital Dave, what would it be?
Young Digital. So, I really think we were just talking about it, but I really think my advice would just be to not play it too safe as a DJ. I remember I had kind of like an aha moment in my career in the mid to late 2000s. We had all these Dexstar and Scam artist DJs coming. Yeah, Scam and Dexstar DJs coming to, and some Mood Swing guys too, Mood Swing 360. Like we had all these guys coming to this club I played at Pittsburgh. It was like the top bottle service club in the city. And basically the way it worked was like every weekend, like this weekend, Friday, I would open for a headliner, and Saturday I'd play the whole night. And then the next weekend, Friday, I'd play the whole night. And then Saturday I'd open for a headliner. So we had headliners literally every week, and we alternated them Friday and Saturday. So I got to hear all these DJs, and they were great. And I started traveling some of them myself, and I would listen to their sets, and I'd be like, I feel like I'm playing more stuff, like more popular music than they are. Like, I feel like they're playing some songs that like aren't as popular here and there. And then I remember my big realization night was I was playing at Ivy in San Diego, at the Ivy Hotel, which is, I think now called the Andaz, something like that.
Yeah.
And it was a big spot down there. And I was playing in their nightclub, and I had such a great night, a packed dance floor, and people were going crazy. And I remember at the end of the night being bummed. I'm like, geez, like none of the promoters or staff like came over and complimented my set. Like, and I didn't get like asked to come back and play again. And the night I felt like went so well. And then I had this realization that I'm like, you know, especially when I go on the road, like I'd be nervous about like, I'm going to play like, you know, this was the heyday of like the Black Eyed Peas and, you know, Pitbull and Flo Rida and all that stuff. And I play so much of that because like, I didn't want to take risk. And when I realized, you know, listening to all these DJs that were, you know, touring the country with Scam and Dexstar and Mood Swing, I'm like, it's those songs we remember what we were just talking about. It's like, you know, playing those songs that make you memorable, that 4 years later, they're still saying, oh, that's the DJ that played this song, you know? And so I really wish I learned a lot younger to kind of be that person, you know.
Totally
so
agree.
that would be the advice I would give
a great tip.
a young digital Dave.
When you talk about traveling, going down to San Diego, what are some of your travel tips? You got Brian B had the neck pillow. Everyone's got their go-to. Like it could be anything.
Brian,
Special bag.
it's funny. Brian B sent me that neck pillow, and he actually sent me one, and I still haven't like figured out, like, because it's weird because it like wraps around your neck and then you lean on it, and I've like tried to put it on at home just to like practice with it, and I still haven't like really grasped the best placement for it, so I haven't gotten to try it out yet. So my favorite travel tip, and I'm going to probably regret saying this because I'm probably going to lose a seat at some point to this. But no, my favorite travel tip when I'm flying is that when you go to check in for your flight, it gives you all like the different seat options. And, you know, you can, you know, pay extra for some seats. Like now they always charge extra for the emergency exit
airline
seats. Any airline. Like you
go
in
a specific airline.
I don't honestly. Who flies out of Pittsburgh? The most direct flights out of Pittsburgh are Spirit. And I hate Spirit, but I end up flying on them a decent amount because they have so many great direct flights out of here. I mean, I fly on American more than anything because that's what we have like the most. We have more American flights out of here than anywhere else. Personally, I like, you know, Southwest, but we have some Southwest flights out of here, but not a ton. So yeah, I don't have a specific airline, but anyways, when I go to check in for a flight, it gives you the option to pick these seats, and you can either pick the free seats or the seats that cost more. The one other thing you can do, and a lot of people, hardly anyone does this, is you can just hit the skip button and you cannot pick your seat and they'll randomly assign you a seat. So I usually go for this. If the like emergency exit row is like $30-$40, like I might pick it and pay the $30-$40. If it's like, sometimes it's like $80, I'm like, I don't want to pay $80 just for the emergency exit row. But what'll happen is if everybody picks all these other seats, even the free seats, because they think they have, the way that it looks on the site, they think they have to pick a seat. So everybody picks all the free seats, and then you get quote unquote randomly assigned. If the emergency exit rows are left, a lot of times you'll get automatic, I'd say 1 out of every 4 or 5 flights, I just get randomly assigned to the emergency exit row, and I don't have to pay any extra. And they actually, the way planes work, like I either want to or might even be legally required to have people in those rows that are, you know, familiar with the processes and opening the doors, you know, because you have to answer the question, are you okay with sitting in this row and stuff? So they have to have those rows filled. So a lot of times if you just don't select the seat, if you're flying solo, like if you're flying with a group of people, it's different, but you know, you get randomly assigned to those emergency exit rows and don't have to pay the extra. That's my big travel tip, I would say, for me.
All right. I like that one. What about big tech? Any new tech? We're big on tech here.
Yeah, I mean, nothing at the, you know, moment. I mean, the last thing that I bought that I probably like really loved was my Astera Pixel tubes, you know, lighting for lighting.
Did you get 4 of those or 8 of those?
I got 4. I'm either going to buy 4 more or I'm going to buy 4 of the brighter, I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head, the Titan tubes. Yeah. I'm either going to buy 4 Titans because like, I just don't, I think some of the venues I play at, like I just wouldn't have like the space to like put 8 of them. Like, not that I played some large venues, but a lot of times like they don't give, the DJs don't have a ton of space around where they're set up. Like I feel like I'd almost rather have the Titans to have like just extra brightness with the same footprint. And then actually I think if I do that
dinner,
sometimes
dinner, or is it more just dancing?
Sometimes I'll put them on like dim during dinner. I'll obviously be more like static and dim during dinner. It depends on the room and the space. Always, though, if you're using any lights, DJs, this is a great piece of advice. During first dances, couples dances, like parent dances, anything like that, if you're a wedding DJ, don't have your lights. It's a lot of times it's best to not have them on, period. But if you're going to have them on like some sort of static white, so that, people's first dance, the bride doesn't have like a blue spot on her dress, or you're not creating extra work for the photographer to remove that blue spot from her dress.
So we got a couple rapid fire questions for you. We're just going to ask them real quick before we end. Your favorite movie of all time?
Pulp Fiction.
Top played artist on Spotify?
I don't really listen to music on there, but my top played podcast from last year was Sips and Ish with Alex Neppa.
There you go. Well, what is
Shout
the
out
best non-curse word, one word insult?
Karen.
That's my mom's name, and she listens to the podcast. She's going to be very upset.
Sorry, it's like, did you? I think it was an M&M's commercial where they call someone a Karen, and they're like, the girl apologizes, and she's like, "I'm sorry for calling you a Karen," and she's like, "But that's my name," and she's like, "Well, I'm sorry, your name is Karen."
Oh my god!
I think it was one of the Super Bowl commercials, actually.
That's my mom's name.
Sorry to Fuse's mom. I apologize.
That's my mom's name as well, actually.
Both of our moms' names Karen. That's hilarious.
Sorry, Drew's mom.
So do you own your own Netflix account, or do you use somebody else's?
I do, but back in the day before it was super mainstream, we used to use my sister-in-law's. But now we've had our own for several years now.
What's your favorite thing to do when you're not DJing?
Spending time with my family or playing basketball.
What's your favorite remixer or producer?
Oh, this one was tough, but I'm gonna give a shout out to Joe Moz, Scooter, and DeVille, probably the most 3 played remixers of all time by me. Joe going even back to like some of his edits that he did as part of Discotech back in the day, and then like James Hype and RL Grime are 2 more recent like EDM producers. I know RL Grime's been around for a minute, but that I've been really into. And I want to shout out, you guys mentioned him earlier in the show. Even Steve has like been putting out so many dope edits. Like, it's been a while since I feel like there's been like a younger, or I don't know how young. I know we talk online, but I don't know how young he is. But like a newer up and comer, editor that's popped up that has made as many useful edits. Like to me, like almost Scooter DeVille style edits that are super useful. So big shout out to Even Steve too.
Shout out,
I agree.
Even Steve.
Some of the other rapid fire questions we've answered, but we do have one more and 2 more. I'm sorry. Your favorite city you've DJ'd in?
Maybe a tie between Tampa and DC. I played, those are the 2 cities I probably played in the most. I feel like they're almost home away from homes. I've had great nights in them. I've had, slower nights in them because I played in them so many times. And I'm also going to throw Vegas in the mix because, it's funny. Vegas it's hard to get to the point where you can DJ in Vegas and get booked there. But like once you do get booked, people go to Vegas to rage. So it's like such an easy, it's a difficult city to get booked in, but it's an easy city to DJ in because once you're actually there in the booth, like everyone wants to rage that's there.
I want to just say I went to a party you DJ'd in Tampa. It was the one in the little back room with the
Old
outside.
Dirty Sundays. Old Dirty Sundays.
That was an awesome party. Yeah, you killed that party. It was a lot of fun.
That is my favorite party of all time. It's such a fun party. It's called Old Dirty Sundays. Shout out to Casper and Fader that are the residents and do all the bookings, and my homie Tom DeGeorge, who owns actually the cool thing, the owner of that venue, Crowbar, is actually from the Pittsburgh area. Is from Erie, which is north of Pittsburgh, and super cool guy, big Steelers fan. So we always kind of hang out when I'm down there. But basically, it's every Sunday night. It's been going on over 10 years, and they play like old school funk, soul, like 90s hip hop, like 70s and 80s funk and soul. Like a lot of B-boys show up, and they've had like a lot of big names. In fact, Scratch Bastard played their 10-year anniversary just recently. They've had a lot of big names there over the years, and it's just a great vibe.
Have you put out a mix from that?
I have, I think probably 6 or 7 of them up on my Mixcloud.
right.
Mixcloud.com/DJ Digital Dave. I have a lot of mixes from that. Like almost every set I've ever played there, I think I posted. Maybe one or two I didn't, because I didn't love the set or just had technical difficulties. But yeah, most of my sets from there are up and posted.
And then the last question: what popular song should you be playing and you refuse to play? And it could be multiple. It makes you cringe, you hate it, but it's like a big song that works, but you do hate it.
So I'm going to go throwback. I mean, this is, something you wouldn't necessarily have to play anymore, but back in the day, the by far song that met this criteria the most for me ever was Timber. I hated Timber. I did not ever play. I eventually, like a year or two after it came out, once in a while I'd get a wedding request for it, and I would play it if it was on like the bride and groom's must play list. That was about it. But I hated Timber, and I remember a couple things. One, I remember turning down $100 tip to play Timber at a nightclub. And I didn't think it was a super nightclubby appropriate song anyways, even if I did play it. I'm trying to play a little trendier than like super top 40 in a nightclub. But I once turned down $100 to not play Timber in a nightclub. And the other thing about Timber is me, and it's probably still on the internet somewhere, but me and Jay Spring, shout out to Jay Spring from Massachusetts, had the biggest, longest debate on this. And I'm sorry, I can't remember if Jay Spring's from Massachusetts or Connecticut, but he's in that area. He's been a long time resident at Shrine and all the clubs up there. And him and JD used to do a show called Remix Report, which shout out to Remix Report. Really, the crazy thing about that is like that was like what a lot of podcasts are doing now. Like JD and Jay Spring were doing like almost 10 years ago.
We were just talking about them.
Yeah. Like, and so anyways, Jay Spring, this was honestly, Drew, mine and your three times debate kind of reminded me of me and Jay Spring's Timber debate. And we basically
put that in the comments. I think he said, "Is this the Timber 2021?" I think someone commented that in there.
And I think we actually wrote, it wasn't a on camera debate. We actually wrote a big point counterpoint article, and it was a long point counterpoint article about Timber. About
now that you say this, I want to say I read this. I actually feel like I read this now that you're bringing it up.
I will look and see if I can find it. And if I can find it, I don't know if you put links and stuff in the comments
we'll post
of the episode, but we can bring the Timber, article back to life. But, just to address this question in general, part of what I've always believed as a DJ, and one of my points in my response to Jay Spring was, I feel like as a DJ, we're supposed to be leading the party. We're supposed to be having fun. And if that fun, kills our vibe, I really feel like, I don't want to kill my own vibe when my vibe is what's other people are supposed to be vibing off of, and the other thing about a song like that, and Call Me Maybe was kind of similar, almost fused to go into your what you talked about with R. Kelly. Obviously it's for different reasons. R. Kelly is because of some heinous things that he's done, but there are definitely songs I feel like that get cheesy enough and overplayed enough. Old Town Road probably falls into this category, where playing them can definitely kill some of the crowd's vibes. As much as some of the more basic part of the crowd might like the song, it definitely kills the vibe of the non-basic part of the crowd. And definitely when you're in the nightclub, there's always going to be some basic people there, but at the same time, the people that are really paying the bills of the nightclub and the promoters and the managers and the owners, they're going to want to hear the more trendy stuff. They're not going to want to hear Timber.
I was at a club recently, and it was the Cool Kid spot, and the guy before me, I want to say, put on it was Miley Cyrus, Party in the USA, and the owner was like, "What the fuck?" But everyone was going crazy for it, and I just thought the same thing, man, this probably isn't the spot to play Party in the USA. But I mean,
I know of a DJ. I know of a DJ that got pulled off, that got yanked off the decks at a place for playing Shakira Hips Don't Lie at a nightclub, which I don't think that song, I play it at weddings and at the casino, but I don't think that song belongs in a nightclub. And I actually know once a DJ that literally got yanked off the decks for playing for playing that in a nightclub. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you gotta keep it, a little more on the trendy side if you're in a nightclub.
So before we end here, we're all good on the Yeah 3 times. I don't hate it. I just think there's ultimately better songs, and Dave was just poking me, and it did escalate into some good fun. Me and Dave are great friends. It was all in good fun. That definitely went.
I love it so much that it's my 11th most played Chris Brown song. I was looking through my overall Serato. I was looking at some of the songs I played more than it, like Music by Eric Sermon and Marvin Gaye, Outstanding by the Gap Band, Strawberry Letter 23 by the Brothers Johnson. Those are some songs I played more than Yeah 3 times. And that's just in the past 2-3 years since play counts come about. So, this is, I equally do not want to be, the Yeah 3 times guy, because it is not remotely a go-to song of mine. But if you have the Yeah 3 times transition that I made, please do not listen to Drew and delete it off your computer. Just delete a different version of it from your computer.
We both preach the same thing, and not to go too crazy on this, but that conversation, I was just telling him a lot of those old word plays I was saying to get rid of. That was kind of what I meant by that. Not picking out a specific one, was just saying some of those old word plays, they were cool when they came out, but if you have 5 versions of into this or into that, or doesn't, just get rid of them. Let's move along a little bit.
Homer backing into the bushes .gif.
If you make them, I totally get it, but sometimes I think
there's stuff I once made. I am not proud of this, but I will admit this. Fortunately, hopefully by this point in the show, maybe less people will be listening. I once made a mashup of Soulja Boy Crank That, the beat from Crank That, with the Jackson 5's All I Want for Christmas Is You over it. Delete that from your computer, please. I'm actually asking you to delete it from your computer.
I think we could all say there's a lot of stuff that we've made over the years that we would love for people to delete. I know I have a ton of stuff where I'm like, well, it was kind of cool at the time, and maybe it was even cool at the time, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, and you got into this, and one thing I backed off from, but like when I used to be on Crooklyn Clan and Crack for DJs, it was like you felt like you were making income per song, like you were making money for every song you uploaded, when it would sell. Right. So sometimes you'd feel like every week, like you almost needed to put music up, and you also wanted to stay relevant. Like if someone liked you wanted them to keep coming back and visiting your, page on the site. So sometimes I'd almost feel pressured, like I'm going to make 3 edits a week, no matter what. And sometimes my ideas were better and sometimes they weren't. And I like what I've eventually evolved into, which is I only make an edit if I want to and really feel the idea is appropriately inspired.
It's good to put stuff out. And, even for a lot of the DJs that I know were commenting on that, we're basically saying, hey, I'm a resident and it works. And I'm not going to argue with you there. If you have to, you need songs to change it up all the time. Totally. It's a non-argument anymore. We're all cool, and it was a lot of fun. Thanks for joining in on it and being part of the podcast. We really appreciate having you. There's a lot of really good nuggets in there, and you're the man, dude. We appreciate it.
Yeah. Appreciate having you on. We want to say thanks to everybody that's listening. If you are, just make sure you subscribe, hit like on the YouTube videos, and if you're on Apple, please leave us a review as well. And that's going to wrap it up for today. Thanks, guys.
Peace.
Peace.